Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into a brand new edition of the 365 Sports Newsletter, the Baylor version. I'm Craig Smoak, talking Bears with you each week as a part of the 365 Sports Newsletter, which you can check out at 365sports.video. That's where you can also sign up after taking a little bit of a preview of what we've got for you each and every week inside that newsletter that includes a story and video on all 16 Big 12 teams, including the Bears. And so that's who and what we are here to talk about right now, although I wish it were under better circumstances, but instead here we are talking about a 42-36 loss in Fort Worth to rival TCU, fresh off of the bye week. And as a result, TCU now 5-2 on the year and back to 500 in Big 12 play, and also with another notch in their belt over their rival Bears. But also as a result, the team you're here to hear about, Dave Aranda and the Fighting Sickums, 4-3 now overall, 2-2 in Big 12 play. So technically now behind TCU in the standings because they're both 2-2 and TCU has head-to-head. So a double slide of sorts for Baylor, going from 2-1 to now 2-2, but also now being leapfrogged by TCU as a result of this loss. And just what a disappointing game. I mean, especially with a couple of weeks to prepare, kind of more of the same things that have ailed Baylor at times, really hurting them in this game. You knew that the defense was going to have its work cut out for it because it has in pretty much every game this year. It's just the nature of the beast. This isn't a very good defensive team, but there are certain weeks when you're a little bit more worried about them than others. And this is one of those weeks because of who TCU has at their disposal when it comes to the quarterback position in particular, but also the weapons that Josh Hoover has around him. And yeah, Kendall Browse, Colin plays as well. Sonny Dykes chiming in. TCU, if they can do anything, they can score some points and light up the scoreboard. And that was a concern coming into this game. And it was a concern that was justified, especially as Baylor just gets completely overwhelmed there in the second quarter, giving up a flurry of scores that leads them into the half down 21-10 after building an early lead and getting off to an okay start for a team looking to get that big upset bid on the road. But as they headed into the locker room, you were left dizzied and dismayed by what you had seen in that second quarter. And despite a flurry there at the end that makes this game very much a pig with some lipstick put on there towards the end, Baylor did not have enough in the tank to really feel like they were going to win this game or that they were ever really in control of this game for the most part. And the scoreboard, while shows things that were close, or while it shows that things were close and that they had an opportunity there to win at the end, I just never bought into it, even as things were starting to kind of slide that way, even though they won some games late this year. It just felt like it was going to be too little too late, and sure enough, it was. A game also marred by long rain delays that seemingly were never-ending, stretching this game out, and particularly brutal when they were down and being blown out, and then you had to wait to just finish off a game that already had the writing on the wall, only to come back and then mount this comeback, only then to fall short. It was like a double, triple, quadruple whammy of how can we make this loss as painful as possible? How about we look like we're going to get blown out, have this game get delayed for forever, come back, look like we're going to win it, only to then lose it. That was just kind of how I walked away from it feeling, was just like, you might as well have just gotten blown out. It might have made everybody just feel better about it rather than giving them this false sense of hope. But I do give the Bears credit for fighting back and scrapping there at the end and making a game of it. But it didn't mask to me just the overall sort of feeling coming out of this game of TCU was kicking your butt. TCU was putting it on you. And then the storms hit and things kind of calmed down a little bit. But, yeah, it's not a very good game. A lot of the warts that they have were on display in this one. And unfortunately, in a very up and down year that's been more up than down for quarterback Sawyer Robertson, this was a very down game for him. 3 interceptions to go along with another Baylor fumble, 4 turnovers on the day for the Bears. But those 3 interceptions, incredibly costly. By your Heisman contender, at least at one point in time, your leader, certainly all the time, one of them, and one of your, if you're not your best players, just not with an acceptable performance. 3 interceptions against anybody, much less TCU, much less on the road, much less in a game where you end up losing by 6 points ultimately, no matter how you got there. Yeah, that's just not a good feeling, and it's not a good look. And I'm very curious to see how Sawyer Robertson bounces back moving forward. He's had a really nice year, but I've been saying for the last few weeks that while he's been kind of mentioned in and out with the Heisman Trophy conversation, based as a team on kind of where they were projecting and kind of moving towards, that conversation didn't seem all that realistic unless he just kept putting up nutty numbers. And there for a couple of weeks he did, and he's still the nation's leading passer and things like that. But you're looking at the team results and you're going, yeah, well, he's going to have to do that and more to be in this conversation. And then after like a couple losses, it's really a question to me of, do we even need to be talking about Heisman right now? They need to focus on the team aspect of things. And not to say that he's been focused on that or distracted by that, or that it's been a distraction for anybody really, but just these kind of conversations are happening on the peripheral. And the last couple of weeks I'm sitting here thinking we need to talk less and really not at all about that, because yards are kind of an empty stat, especially if you're not winning games, and the touchdowns are cool, but ultimately it's about winning. And I just don't feel like he's been the sharpest player necessarily over the last couple of weeks, no matter what some of the numbers have said. And sure enough, in this game, the numbers say a whole lot, and they are what they are. And those 3 interceptions, just incredibly costly. So going to need a big bounce back from your quarterback. But again, new TCU would be a tough test defensively, and certainly they were. Piled up 427 yards. They were over 50% on third downs. Let's see here, 231 through the air, nearly 8 yards per pass, nearly 200 yards on the ground, over 5 yards per rush. Penalties were pretty much even. TCU did have the 1 turnover, so you traded fumbles, but again, it was those 3 interceptions that really were the tipping point ultimately in this game, and why TCU is celebrating along with their own quarterback doing his thing, and Josh Hoover, a really good player. And the Bears are going to have to turn from one really good quarterback and arguably the best quarterback in the league in Josh Hoover to the guy who might actually be the best quarterback in the league coming up in Brendan Sorsby. And yes, Sam Levitt and Tempe has something to say about that as well. But a major challenge coming up this weekend for the Bears, who don't have time to really lick their wounds. It's back on the saddle. You're just coming off of a bye week, disappointing result coming out of that bye week, but you got to keep your head straight, and you got to keep focused, and you just got to keep grinding, man. So on the road now to Cincinnati for Dave Aranda and the Bears, and that will be a huge challenge because they're playing as well as anyone. And right now it is them and BYU on top of the standings at 4-0 apiece. Cincinnati with only that loss to Nebraska at the very beginning of the year, a game that they had an opportunity to go down and potentially win. But Brendan Sorsby with an ill-timed, speaking of, interception, and he ends up throwing a bad ball that gets picked, and that ended their upset aspirations of Nebraska. But besides that game, Cincinnati since then has been perfect, and Sorsby has been very good, and with the weapons that he has around him, that's going to be a monumental order for a Baylor defense already struggling as it is. So just taking a look, gave up 38 points in the opener, 45 in a loss to SMU, or in a win, against SMU. Samford, whatever. 27 in a loss to Arizona State, 27 in a win against Oklahoma State, gave up 34 to K-State in a 1-point win, and then 42 in a loss now to TCU that, again, scoreboard makes it look a lot closer than it actually was, and the way that it actually felt for a large portion of that game. So suffice to say, this defense just not getting it done, and that does raise concern and has been concerning throughout the year. I really don't know where we go from here, folks. It's all going to depend on kind of how the rest of the season plays out, but it's been a weird conversation to have each week, just kind of trying to figure out where the fan base is. Used to be a lot easier when I was like on scene, I feel like a lot more, and just things around the program were just different. It's just different times now, and I'm a little bit further away, but it just feels like from 1,000-foot view that this thing's just kind of listless and certainly not very fun and sometimes entertaining, but a lot of times head scratching and kind of aggravating. And I don't know what to make of the rest of this season. I know that Big 12 championship hopes are pretty much kaput, not entirely out of the equation, but you're behind 7 teams as it stands right now. And like 5 of them have at least one or no, like 3 of the 5 have a 1-game advantage, but then there's a couple that already have 2-game advantages in BYU and Cincinnati. Cincinnati can have like a 3-game advantage over you, but what am I doing? I'm sitting here talking like we're talking about Sawyer Robertson, the Heisman, something that's not realistic right now. And so now here I am talking about Baylor in the Big 12 title, something that's not realistic right now. The path I was venturing down was I don't know where this thing goes now that some of the big picture things are sort of not realistic at the moment, and you're having to dig yourself back out of a hole, albeit with only 5 games to go. I don't know what the expectation is. I don't know what would be satisfactory to the fan base at this point. But I do know you're 4-3. I do know Cincinnati's not an entirely impossible game to win, although it will be difficult. I do know there's a couple games you can win on the remainder of this schedule, but I also know you could lose out. That's very realistic. I mean, Cincinnati, you're an underdog. UCF is actually a pretty feisty team. Utah certainly could be and is probably better than you at Arizona. That would be a game you're probably rolling in as an underdog. And then Houston, I think Houston is obviously in a better spot than you are right now. And based on what we've seen, they're probably a better football team than you are right now. So it's one game at a time, but with only 5 left to play and now at 4-3, no more playoff talk, no more Heisman talk, no more even Big 12 championship talk. They've got to batten down and go win this week to even give themselves a chance to want to revisit those types of topics over this last month of the season. And beyond that, you go and lose this game, and now you're 4-4, and now all of a sudden you're under 500 in the Big 12. And I don't know, what are the conversations like next week? I know what a lot of people would like to see, and that's a change, just a breath of fresh air or whatever. Don't think we're quite to that point just yet, but I understand why that conversation's been happening for a while. And so I'm just sort of talking out loud here, but this thing just feels kind of listless and drifting, and I don't know what to think of it anymore as it just sort of sways back and forth from positivity to negativity on a whim. I'm trying to not be that guy who reacts to the change in wind direction every single moment, but I just can't get a good grasp on this program right now because there's just nothing to really grasp onto. And they are so average that it doesn't really lend to you being able to talk too much one way or the other about them either. So we'll see what happens this week on the road against Cincinnati, but just big picture, I'm as just sort of, I don't know if confused is the word, but I'm just sort of waiting to see what happens next because I don't know which direction this program is heading. I do know that was a major step back on Saturday. I do know they could very well have another one in store this Saturday, and I worry about what that leads to ultimately. But there are 5 games to play. Dust yourself off, get back on the saddle, and go win this weekend. And bam, you're 5-3, and you're 3-2 in the Big 12, and things feel fine. But Sawyer Robertson's got to play much better. You can't turn the ball over 3 times from the QB position alone. You can't turn the ball over 4 times as a team. You can't give up 30-plus points like it's going out of style, much less 42 to your arch rival. You can't do a lot of the things that they've done to hurt themselves this year, or we're going to be back again next week talking about another loss. And then imagine what I'll really be feeling like at that point on the heels of another loss. I'm a little bit lost myself as far as what to think of the remainder of this season and just the overall direction. But I'll be back here next week to talk about it. Definitely disappointing, especially coming off the bye week. Thought TCU was there for the taking. Give credit to Sonny Dykes and the Frogs. They're a good football team. They're an upper half of the Big 12 contender. And they are definitely a better team than the Bears, who, again, are just kind of there in the middle. And whether they end up towards the top or towards the bottom will be decided here over the next 5 weeks. But neither one would surprise me at this point. Nothing would really surprise me with this team other than reeling off 5 straight wins, although I think at times that they played their best. That's not even out of the equation. But I know that there's not a lot of hope that will be the case. So this sort of unpredictable, but not all that wild ride, is unpredictable in a sort of bad way type of trip that we're on here in 2025. We'll continue in Cincinnati, Ohio this week. We'll see if Robertson and the boys can bounce back, but a bad showing in Fort Worth, a bad taste in your mouth coming out of that one, a bad Saturday at the office when it came to having to sit through that rain delay, but maybe things will be much better this weekend. But it all starts with cleaning up those turnovers and getting some stops on defense. We'll see if the Bears are able to do that, but it is what it is, folks. 4-3, 2-2, a growing list of coaching firings. I don't anticipate Baylor will be involved in that mix, but I am very interested in how this season closes out, and I am very interested in kind of what the whispers are as this season winds down, because I guess the thing I've been dancing around and sort of alluding to, not in any sort of mysterious way, I just don't quite know how to phrase my words, is something's got to give here pretty soon. This just sort of flatline can't continue much longer. And I just sort of feel like this thing's been just very I don't even know what the words for it are. Not flatlined as in dead by any means, but just, man, there's not a lot to grab onto right now. There's not a lot to wrap your arms around. There's not a lot to get excited about. And there really hasn't been, except for in ebbs and flows. And even those are brief when they do appear. So this program's got to get some things figured out. And I don't know if that will be the case in these next 5 games, but I know that this trip to Cincinnati will go a long way in steering us one way or the other over these last few games of whether this is going to be a more optimistic run towards the end or a more pessimistic run, as it has been more often than not. It feels like this season, certainly amongst swaths of the fan base. So I'm in the middle. I'm definitely leaning a little bit more negative after this past weekend. But I do think this team is capable of reeling off some more wins. But just program-wise overall, this thing's just kind of stuck in a place right now that it needs to get unstuck from, and I don't know how it does that at the moment. So not trying to be ominous, not trying to be anything other than just me. And right now I'm just very confused about the Baylor football program and its direction and its goals and its end game, the way things currently sit. And this weekend only furthered that. It didn't alleviate that at all. What will this next weekend do? As far as that goes, we will see. Saturday, 3:00, Cincinnati, Ohio, Bears versus Bearcats. Last time Baylor was there, a thrilling field goal victory, big kick there at the end to beat the Bearcats. But a game that Cincinnati, I know, felt like they should have won. And I think they feel like they should win this one as well. And the numbers say that they probably should, but any given Saturday, right? So until next time, tough loss. But they need a bounce back in the worst way and an injection of some positivity and some excitement. We'll see if they can get that done this weekend. But until next time, check out the 365 Sports newsletter, 365sports.video, to sign up and encourage others to do so as well. Join over a couple thousand people already signed up for the 365 Sports newsletter. They get into their inboxes each and every Wednesday morning. Until next time, thanks to Garrett Ross for producing this week. Please hit that like and subscribe button. And I'm Craig Smoak for the Baylor 365 Sports newsletter.